week 25. Can I get a round of applause here? All right, a lot of very important people, very special people made this happen today. First off is our boosters who support us all year long to help us keep programs like these going, right? You out there in the audience, listening, being an amazing audience members, open-minded and ready, right? We want to thank all of you, yeah. All right, without further ado, I want to welcome Nick Tater to the stage.
Procrastination, a series of, I have plenty of time, or I can wait until tomorrow, but then it always finds a way to sneak up on us, and as I'm working on this for Writers Week, I wonder if I'll even finish this in time or just end up procrastinating until the last second. And that's as far as I got. So, yeah. But, I mean, why is it that we procrastinate so much? I mean, how hard is it to just split up the work evenly and do a little bit of it each night? But no, we always got to go watch the big game or go out with our friends because, I have a few more days to finish my homework, so I'll be just fine. And it always goes something like this. You show up to class eager to learn, thinking, this is the year where I stop procrastinating and get all my homework done. And you have a seat somewhere in the back because, how else are you supposed to play games on your iPad? And the teacher gets up and says, all right, class, just a reminder, all your Math Excel homework will be due at the end of the unit in 2 weeks. And you think to yourself, that doesn't sound so bad. So you go home and you find yourself sitting on the couch scrolling through Instagram when you get a call from your best friend. Hey man, you want to go hang out tonight? And you're sitting there thinking, maybe I should get started on my math homework. But you tell them, what the heck, it's Friday. So let's go on up. So you go on and, you have the time of your life, not worrying about anything else because you're only a teenager in high school, so who cares? And the next day you go home and decide to finally start working on your homework, but you remember there was something you had to do before. Oh, God, my laundry. Of course, I had to do my laundry before I could start on my homework. So, I gotta go do my laundry and I get that done and then I'm back on the couch scrolling through Instagram. Next thing you know, it's the following week and time flies by and we're back in math class. Just 1 week until all your Math Excel homework is due. Okay, breathe. There's 7 worksheets, 7 days to complete them, so I'll just split up the work evenly. And so you even make a little calendar on which days to do which worksheet, and it's all cute and color-coded, and wow, you're feeling ready to take this beast on. iPad in hand, snack supplies stable, bathroom breaks scheduled in advance, here we go. Except none of this actually happens because you thought that you were so prepared that you could afford to wait just a few more days and time rushed by faster than your GPA dropped because, let's face it, you haven't done a single assignment since August and now it's testing day. You walk into class knowing very well you haven't spent a single minute studying or doing homework and the panic starts to set in. But not to worry, you've paid some attention in class, so you'll be fine. You get the test and your hands start to sweat. When did we learn this? Why are there letters everywhere? English ended 2 periods ago, people. Your mind races around trying to decide a plan of action. Do I pull hey, I have to go to the bathroom real fast. Or I could cheat off Susan, she's smart. Or if I threw up, they'd have to take me out of here, right? They'd have to. However, after admitting defeat, you finally get up and turn it in with just 11 of the 36 questions fully answered. It's over. I guess the moral of the story is to not procrastinate or something like that. Or at least if you are, become good at procrastinating because there's nothing better than waiting until the very last second to do all of your homework and getting it done, being able to tell everyone that said you couldn't, I told you so. Thank you. Next up is a Kopek.
Hey guys, shout out to my 8th period class, they're right there, and shout out to Tech Crew. I'm gonna be performing a poem, it's called Dreamers. A friend once asked me what I think about when I sit silently and stare off at nothing. She wanted to know where my mind wanders and where I imagine myself when I zone out of my desk, my class, and into my dreams. Well, I took a deep breath and looked away, and I thought about what she was asking. Where do I go when I let myself dream? The first place that came to my mind was somewhere I hold close to my heart, somewhere I yearn to be, the ocean, the beach. I visualized every detail as if I were there, the pale yellow sand, fine like sugar, the cold blue-green waves throwing themselves against the shore, washing up light pink-white shells and sparkling sea foam, mothers with daughters and fathers with sons, the bright blinding colors of umbrellas and bathing suits, the shouts of men selling soda, popcorn, and peanuts. I felt the sand running through my fingers, silky smooth and warm. I saw children splashing through water and seaweed and sun. I smelled the scent of salt and sunscreen hanging in the air. And I proceeded to take a moment to think about every other beautiful place I've ever been to, dedicating just a couple fleeting seconds to each. My mind first brought me to Poland, where I walked through evergreen forests, sprinkled here and there with powdery white snow. I heard the shrill call of a songbird, saw faint deer tracks in the ground, and was intoxicated by the thick smell of pine needles and spring. My heart was filled with pride and love as I heard Chopin's military polonaise mingling with the sound of soft Polish chatter in the whispers of the wind. Then I found myself in my cousin's house, back here in America, overcome with the feeling of Christmas. Warm reds, minty greens, and glittering golds filtered into flashes of my mom, my dad, my brother, my aunt. The air tasted like Christmas feast, buttered mashed potatoes, roasted ham. Presents sparkled under the tree, and I heard the laughter of my little cousins as they played tag around the table, and I closed my eyes for a moment to take it all in. And before I knew it, I was in a park with my old friends, singing silly pop songs about love, and all I could feel was grass, wood chips, a summer breeze, and the slightly staticky feeling of sliding down my favorite slide. The sky was blue without a single cloud in sight, the air was crisp and smelled like freshly cut grass, and I was happy. So undeniably happy, just from the thought of being somewhere else. I just go where I wish I could be, I guess, I told my friend, my skin still radiating with warmth and my heart still full of light. And I left her there, sitting quietly at her desk, confusion gently etched across her face, and left to go to my next class. And the moment she was out of earshot, I muttered to myself, I go where dreamers go. Thanks, guys. Up next is Emily Howe.
Shout out to Mr. Cav's 8th period. So on the mention of China, what's the first thing that comes to mind? An exploding economy, a respectable world power, or a landmass shaped like a chicken? I'm not here to talk about any of these things. As Americans, outsiders, our perceptions of other countries are dramatically limited. Things happen abroad that aren't covered by our news channels. Things we're despondently ignorant of. 18 years ago, my parents took my older sister and fled a life of comfort to come to America. The story of their immigration is not much different from the typical one. The United States promised opportunity, relevancy, and freedom. But they didn't leave centuries of ancestors behind them when they already had everything they needed to live a comfortable life. No, something about the developing political climate of China told them that it was time to go. It wasn't that China hadn't changed already. The spark of civil war in April of 1957 marked dramatic social and political upheavals, namely the persecution of the rich and the government's newfound control over the economy. Some might say that China's Communist Party had more success in transforming the nation than others, yet it does not change the fact that 45 million people perished under Mao Zedong's Great Leap Forward. It's been dubbed the greatest mass murder this world has ever seen. It's history, under-acknowledged history, and history leaves ripples. We see them today, when the modern Chinese government refuses to allow open discussion of the smear on their record, afraid of criticism which otherwise could have made them stronger. Those with too much power are quickly addressed, and over-influential celebrities vanish overnight, only to reappear weeks later with profuse apologies to a government which they have somehow wronged. Unauthorized websites are blocked by the Chinese government's infamous firewall, limiting citizens' exposure to controversial or unfavorable material. Late last year, the movie Christopher Robin was suddenly removed from theaters after citizens scornfully compared President Xi Jinping to the portly Winnie the Pooh. British children's cartoon Peppa the Pig was removed from search engines for being a symbol of teenage resistance. It may seem amusing, but censorship in any form is already a blatant warning. Even social media is carefully watched. Outspoken individuals who posted videos splattering ink over portraits of their president were sent to mental institutions after fame made them difficult to silence otherwise. Are you surprised? China's been at this for years, and it's not just China. We're all aware that the United States Constitution promises freedom of speech, press, and religion. Well, not every country promises those rights. News such as this doesn't typically reach the ears of the heralds of liberty in the West. China, for one, is influential and powerful. It's not convenient to concern ourselves with the violations of the rights of millions in a country that takes 13 hours to reach by air. When we think of China as it is and as it was, we only see a successful economic powerhouse, not a country with a deteriorating human rights record. That's where we fall short. It's too easy to only acknowledge the surface. It's too easy to forget that people exist beneath the numbers. It's too easy to ignore Turkey's faraway crusade against human rights defenders and political activists, the murder of journalists in Saudi Arabia, the actions of power-hungry presidents in Venezuela, Russia's crackdown on free speech, the Myanmar's government's inaction as Rohingyas are erroneously labeled as aliens and chased from their homes with fire and fury. Apathy can be lethal, as it was during the Armenian genocide, 1.15 million murdered, as it was during the Holocaust, 17 million gone forever. Our modern world is not safe from tyranny. The rights which we enjoy are not free, and nor are they owed to us. They were fought for, won, and continue to be fought for every day. Our duty as human beings is to look beyond the borders of our own countries and see, to concern ourselves with what may seem too removed to be relevant. For beneath foreign cultures and differing mannerisms are fellow human beings within the international community. The fight for our rights should be an active one, not shrouded by ignorance, and the first step towards this is knowledge. We live in a world of hate and fear. To deny it is to deny human nature. When governments oppress the rights of the governed, try to silence them, tell them what they believe is wrong, that they are traitors and liars, well, that's not government that serves their people. When monarchs try to strangle the voice of their citizens, they are a monarch who loves power, not their country. Systems like this have one weakness. At their core, they are afraid. Afraid that the people will grow restless and lust for change. Afraid that the people will know that as humans, they deserve free rights. Knowledge is power, and power is capable of changing the world for better or for worse. It's a big world. Keeping updated with rights infringement abroad might not be as interesting as texting a friend or watching a movie, but your awareness is powerful. You are a part of a collective, global community entrusted with the duty of knowing and speaking out. Apathy is lethal. Be aware. Next up is Sky Taylor.
Hi. My English class isn't here, so I'm just gonna give a shout out to my teacher, Mrs. O'Donnell. This is just a really silly story. I wrote it like 3 a.m. the day it was due, about the greatest love of my life, my cat. So I'm just gonna get into it. This is a story I've never told before, not to anyone. It comes from another, my cousin Camden, but it's closest to me because it's closest to my cat, Puff. Puff is no small cat. At 9.5 pounds, she's stocky, and when she walks through the rectangular cat door, and her fluffy body comes out in the same shape as if a door was the cookie cutter. The other inhabitants of the house, now 2 other cats, 2 dogs, and 2 turtles, but then only 1 other cat, 2 dogs, and 2 turtles, are regular victims of her swift swat and claw. Frankly, Puff doesn't take shit from anyone. Like me, she spends the day sleeping, eating, and bullying the others. My cat and I get along perfectly. I can't say the same for my cat and the other pets, though. Now, at the time of writing this, Puff is 6 years old, 36 or so in cat years. In this story, however, she was 3, a mere 18 cat years old. Like most 18-year-olds, she was still figuring out adulthood. Most of her frustrations were taken out on Katniss, the other cat. While Puff was large in size due to her fur and her ragdoll breed being naturally big, Katniss was large in size due to her gluttony. I mean, this cat was, and is, fat. Her stomach does not yet touch the ground when she walks, but when she sits on her haunches, her silhouette is curvaceous, round, thick. Puff and Katniss have been longtime enemies, but while Katniss is older and has experienced an outside world, Puff has a red, burning vengeance so hot that Katniss usually stands no chance. The real story, on this day 3 years ago, details just how far Puff will go to establish dominance. My family and I were gone on some trip, probably in South Carolina visiting family. The dogs, more enemies of the great white Puff, were in Wisconsin with my grandfather. My cousins, who lived down the street, were over feeding my turtles and cats. There had already been some hostility between the two cats that day in my basement. Katniss had just finished using the litter box, and Puff was down there wanting more food. But then she spotted her black and white nemesis and forgot all about food. She stopped at the door, staring Katniss down and preventing her from leaving. Katniss paused in the center of the room. Neither moved. Time elapsed. Finally, Katniss spoke. Her grumbling growl, low and menacing, would scare most others, but not Puff. Enjoying the fear she elicited, Puff allowed her tail to snap and twirl, the fluffy movement like the sight of a fearsome incoming battle flag, promising bad intentions. She locked her muscles, still for a split second, before she sprinted at Katniss, galloping the few feet and raising her front paws to try and leap onto the other cat. For once, Katniss was able to move faster than Puff, and took her opportunity to escape and dash up the stairs. Puff sat down in the center of the room Katniss had just vacated, staring out the door. To her, the fight was not over, not until there was victory. She lifted her paw and licked it, rubbing the wet fur on her forehead. Perhaps their whole rivalry stems from Puff's desire to play. While she's a pleasant, personable feline, she also wishes for a lot more attention than my family and I can dedicate to her. So when we can no longer sate her petting needs, she moves on to the other creatures. Belle, one of our dogs, will usually groom Puff for her. Puff's relationship with the other dog, Winnie, is almost as hostile as her relationship with Katniss, but Winnie is annoying as hell and deserves it. This leaves Katniss as Puff's last, and in her oval blue eyes, most deserving victim. My cousins entered the house around noon to come give the cat some more food. Puff was prowling the main floor. She greeted my cousins, being friendly to humans, before setting off to get revenge on her fellow cat. For some rare reason, Katniss, who hates almost everyone except for my parents, was not hiding under my parents' bed. Puff climbed up the stairs to the second floor to continue her search, and Katniss remained on the lower floor. Now, the upstairs is like an oval, or it's a window-lit space with a slanted ceiling. There's a hallway downstairs with a path from the entry to the kitchen area, as well as the stairs. This allows for the upstairs to have a loft-like room. From the upstairs loft, one can look directly downwards to the hallway, as well as to all the rooms that connects to it. A wood railing is the only thing that really separates the two areas, creating a balcony-like area. Katniss, who had been sitting down on one of the living room couches, sat up, got up on all fours, and stretched her back. Then, she made the fatal mistake of hopping off the couch and starting to walk towards the entry. The loud thud she made jumping from the couch was audible to all, especially the prowling beast upstairs. Puff, realizing her target was downstairs, approached the railing of the loft to look down, allowing the hunter inside of all cats to control her actions. Katniss continued her stroll, walking past one of my cousins taking trash out to the garage. She continued down the main hallway under the loft, completely oblivious to what was above. Her stroll was leisurely, unbothered. She didn't realize that revenge was coming. Swift, hard revenge. Now, my cousins say it happened like this. Puff watched her move a foot down the hallway before she decided it was time to attack. She raised her rump, shaking it like a true feline, kept her eyes on Katniss, and then leapt forward. The descent was a quick 10 or so feet, so quick that even if Katniss had finally recognized what was going on, it was simply too late. Puff came crashing down onto Katniss, and the boom of her 9.5 pounds landing on the tile and cat below was heard by everyone in the house. Katniss let out a loud meow, managing to dash off quickly and escape, but Puff had won. Puff then turned, sauntered off towards the dining room table, tail flicking, and took a celebratory nap, victorious once again. Up next, we have Megan Jong.
Okay, shout out to 8th period Mrs. Eng's AP Lit class. Entire auditorium. All right, cool. So this is a product of the grueling college admission process, but don't worry, I've toned down the hasty attempts at imagery and trying to find a moral or life lesson from the most seemingly meaningless and smallest events in my life. So, without further ado, this is a prompt for write a letter to an inanimate object. Okay. Dear Stairs, today I fell head over heels for you. Literally. I read the other day that the vivid imagination of a child could be fostered well into elementary school years. Do you remember seeing my face brightly light up the first time I saw you? When I moved into this house at the age of 4, I didn't know what love at first sight meant. However, as I took in your grandiose cream carpet cover and elegant smooth cherry oak banisters, you were definitely the closest I had to one. I never told you, but I went on so many adventures, and thankfully you were always there. As I slew the dragons creeping into my bedroom, you would be the protective moat that stopped more from entering. As I brewed magical concoctions, you would be the secret lair with posts to bar intruders. As I discovered new islands, you would be my treasure map with grooves and bumps to mark the topography. Perhaps I took it too far that one afternoon when I mistook you as a waterfall in Pocahontas, and I tumbled down each one of your steps as I tried to discover what's around the river bend. Chance may have it that I didn't get hurt beyond a few bruises, but such luck prolonged my denial that our adventures needed to stop. And I remember our very last escape. I believed I could be a Hun from Mulan and jumped from the top to the bottom step, seeking adventure. I couldn't imagine the powdery, fluffy snow to catch my fall, and I broke my leg instead. From then on, I can never look at you the same, but I believe our time together pleasantly involved. After my leg healed and I overcame my hesitance with you and your kin, you still maintained a steady presence in my life. I would always hide behind your banister when the door rang, between the second and third posts, where I could see the delivery man clearly. Though I couldn't ever muster the courage to answer the door. Did you see me a couple months ago, though? I answered the door for a stranger for the first time, and it was a Girl Scout selling cookies. And it was comforting to know that, despite the omnipresence of the virtual world, casual in-person conversations can still occur, as long as someone finds the confidence to initiate and the other to respond. As I grew older, I appreciated you in new ways. You would send me signals late at night, and I would hear you echo the heavy thuds of my mother's footsteps as she worked up the stairs. By then, I knew that I only had a handful of seconds to turn off the lights, hide my journal, and pretend to sleep. However, when writing words couldn't comfort me, you gave me the space to work through my thoughts. I appreciate the nights when I would simply sit on you, my head resting exactly 2 steps above the one I sit on. We never talked, of course, as I was in a pensive mood, but I never thought to say thank you. So thank you for being there and for letting me just be. I think, as with anything, the busier I've gotten, the less I've noticed you. Do you feel neglect or no loneliness like humans? I rush past you every morning, usually in order to leave for school on time, and I no longer pay you the attention you deserve. I've become too familiar with you, and maybe I'm even taking you for granted, as I space my steps out perfectly so I can climb without thinking of you. Though occasionally, like today, I still trip. Were you trying to get my attention? I just hope that you know I'm terribly sorry and that you forgive me. Next year, as I reacquaint myself with a new set of stairs, remember that I'll never forget you, though you'll no longer see how I'm doing daily. But know that I'll be okay. I'll be off tackling my own adventures, but I'll forever keep the ones we had close at heart. Sincerely, Megan. P.S. Do vacuum cleaners tickle? Next up is Randall Wingrad.
What's up, everyone? How y'all doing? So, first of all, shout out to Shomu's class. I was spread around, I'm sure. So, last year I was fortunate to be given the opportunity to speak here at Writers Week, and I spoke about my perception of cars and how they are not simply objects that sit in the sun and get rained on and get rammed through potholes, but instead I view them as being part of the owner. They're filled with memories and experience. And this stems from my family's old trucks. This includes my father's old 1978 and 1979 Ford Broncos, and my Bronco, my dinosaur Bronco. See, mine's 50 years old because it's a 1968. And with that age, there's a certain freedom you don't get with a modern car. I mean, It looks cool, but it has classic shapes, curves, and lines. It's remarkable. But like I said, my Bronco is 50 years old, and this comes with both responsibilities and freedoms. First of all, it has no airbags, no doors, and preferably no top. And that said, many people question its safety. And yes, it's not remotely as safe as a new car, I can guarantee you. But that's a reason that I chose my truck. There's a certain feeling of freedom for me as soon as I sit behind the wheel. I'm not hidden behind tons of safety features that supply a disconnect between me and the road. It's just me and the bare bones truck flying down one winding road after another with the radio blaring "Hi" by So Sly. And by the way, that's a good song, y'all should check it out. But for those people who love safety features, I've added seatbelts among other features, but I still want to have fun with it. And besides, if you want safe, buy a Volvo. Regardless, just like any car, aged or modern, it's imperative that I don't drive recklessly. It has its quirks and tricks that have to be learned. It's not a normal car, and it doesn't drive with one. It doesn't act like one either. It's got the oversized aggressive tires, the suspension lift, the body lift, and a newer manual transmission that all adds depth to the driving knowledge required to drive it. But that's why it's unique for me. I hop up into it, because I'm short, and I'm not sitting in my admittedly boring, easy-to-drive Honda. I'm sitting in the exciting, energetic, ready-to-go old reliable. I turn the key, and it's me in the truck, and that's the end of the story. Coordinating with freedom is the feeling of being on top of the world. That's how driving my truck feels for me. Top down, doors off, maybe the windshield folded down. On a sunny day, it could not be better. Hearing the exhaust as I take it to 3,000 RPM and cycle through the gears is just a legendary feeling, mostly because it sounds oh so beautiful. In a literal sense, it compliments me. It's loud when I want it to be, and it's pretty tall. But in a figurative sense, it makes me feel like I can accomplish anything, because I've built that truck from the ground up. When I drive it, I feel like I can see something I want to do and just go do it. And that's the largest reason I love my truck. It's a process that we force each other through. Just like I've made it look prettier, it has fine-tuned many characteristics of me that I feel should be instilled in all young adults. Patience, determination, and work ethic. But indirectly, it has opened doors for me that has allowed me to have many wonderful experiences and meet interesting people, and through these, how to just simply talk to people. How to find something to talk about when there really isn't anything. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a huge social butterfly. But I've surprised many people by the way I talk and by the fact that I don't require earbuds to function. I've turned bolts, cut sheet metal, and I've installed transmissions. But that truck has done far more for me than most other activities would have. Most people look at my truck and see it as a material object. A cool car with fancy doodads, shiny parts, and big tires. And on the surface, I can say I see the same thing. But when I look further, I see an achievement with more on the horizon. I see a rich history of happy memories, success, frustration, and perseverance. I look at my truck and I see inspiration. Next piece. So I suppose it's customary for a senior to look back and reflect on things they saw or realized throughout the time here. And I also suppose that, well, I'm a senior, so here it goes. Alright, I'm gonna relate high school to roller coaster. Now it may seem weird or at first or quite cliche, but there are actually numerous similarities. In the beginning, it's just the ride structure itself. You have teachers and staff here that are the railings and walkways leading to the ride. Like actual railings and walkways, they're here to guide you along a turbulent journey through the next 4 years of your life and make sure that you don't diverge from the path that leads to the next step. You have the rails and supports that provide the twists, turns, and loops that you will be thrown around on. This is the material you will be learning over the time here. Don't worry, there are tall hills and steep drops as well. Then there's the operators. They are the teachers and staff from your junior high. They check your belt to make sure you're ready for the ride and hit that green button that signifies your junior high school diploma that thrusts you onto the ride. The green button they promised they would hit at the count of 3, but instead you're moving at 2. Jerks. At first you're comfortable. It's a flat, boring piece of track full of review packets and icebreakers to start you off. And you come to your first incline. These are all the tests you take on review material. You get an A or a B on your first grade as your first grade in the grade book, and your year starts off great. You're riding high. The first turn is your first new unit. Welcome to high school and your first days of real lessons. Every day is a twist and a new lesson, and you're currently questioning why you let your friend convince you to get on this ride and you hate their guts. Then your stomach drops as you do too when your first bad grade is stamped, or you stayed up until 2 a.m. to finish a project only to find out that it's due next week, whichever comes first. Lose track of the twists and the turns when that loop comes that throws your head into the side of the thief. Kids, this is what we call finals. A small percentage of the ride, but one that leaves you dizzy for half of it. It somehow mashes an incline, decline, twist, and turn all into one. Kind of like the forgotten material being remashed into your brain. There's more twists and turns and inclines and declines, and you go through them all, still surprised, but how many has it been now? And you come to the second loop just in time for an 85-degree drop at summer school where you have a week of class condensed into one day with the homework to match. And it all repeats for another 4 minutes, one for each year, until it all comes to a stop as soon as it began. Yet, after all those unexpected, thrilling actions roller coaster imposed onto you, the walk away from the exit is run with a reminiscent smile. You look at the people walking off with you that were there and experience the whole ordeal by your side and immediately wish the ride was longer. That it hadn't gone by so fast that you could go to the beginning of the line where you threw yourself into the seat with excitement and anticipation for whatever it was going to throw at you. Nevertheless, you ride the next roller coaster, one with new twists, turns, loops, and drop-offs ready to throw you around. One with new excitement and thrills that at the end, you'll wish again that the time hadn't flew by. And then we have Emily for another piece.
Sorry, I have to find it. Another shout out to Mr. Cav's 8th period. So I moved here a few years ago, and at my old school there's this kid called Quentin. So in October, I found out that he committed suicide. So essentially there was a bullying situation that I did not know about, but a friend told me what had happened, and I wrote a poem for him. It's called Another We Lost, and each line starts with a different letter of the alphabet. Another we lost. Bearing this weight, alone and straining, could never be harder, but I'm a fighter, and I don't know the meaning of giving up as I repeat. Every day as the sun rises higher, eyes camera shutters, from the sweat on my lashes, or are they tears? Got to survive, can't let them see me crying, hating the days numbered 2 to 5, insisting, more like praying, that joy will come in time and that knives become less attractive since losing is not an option, because I have so many things to be thankful for, except lately nothing makes me happy anymore. And now I occasionally ponder things that scare me. Pick yourself up, my daily mantra, and I quote the people who cut me with red lips and piercing eyes, shaking with laughter as my shoulders slump, tailing me like an entourage of vultures for the kill. Underneath my smile is the damage that they viciously carved into me with permanent marker. Words so deep that if Superman came to save me, his X-ray vision would see my broken bones, my tired soul. You finally see how you hurt me and why there are now 0 things for me to be happy about. So farewell from another we lost. Next up is a Kopek.
Alright, so this is a story. It's called Not Lonely, Just Alone. The girl sat down in the middle of a wooden bench in the corner of a walled garden. The bench was painted like cornflower blue, tucked away into a soothing shade where one would have to look just slightly harder than usual to make out the shapes and colors of the world around them. The girl breathed deeply as a light breeze caressed her face and lightly blew her hair into wisps of fine gold. Flowers splayed out in front of her in a radial mosaic of bright colors and the heavenly smell of dew and honey. Her mind was tranquil and her arms were loose, hands resting in her lap, fingers fidgeting with the thin silver chain of her handbag. She didn't seem to be thinking about anything at all, just calmly taking in her surroundings and filing away what her senses collected so that she could relive the sensation of being here again at a later date. The delicate chirping of sparrows woke her mind up from its slumber, and thoughts began to bloom in the crevices of her intellect like dandelions in rain-wet mud. She marveled at the idea of being alone on this bench in this garden with the simple yet comforting company of nature. She felt strangely close to the world, the earth, and the universe, as if she were one with every blade of grass, every drop of rain, every grain of sand, and every star in the sky. Other people and their monotonous daily activities no longer existed to her. It was as if the matter not contained in a 10-meter radius of herself had suddenly disappeared, and she was left floating through space and time alone in this small garden. She felt oddly powerless at the moment, as if nothing she'd done ever mattered, and the things she may or may not do in her future didn't matter either. All her most prideful accomplishments and most hideous, embarrassing mistakes, they meant nothing now. The girl figured that she might as well have never existed. It's not like much would change. She could become a famous actress or a musician or a biomedical engineer or even an astronaut when she grew up, and it wouldn't matter. Her daily actions caused no uproar in the universe, nor did they create even a tiny speck of change. Therefore, if she were to suddenly disappear and indeed start floating through a void in space on this bench and into this garden, nothing would change. Absolutely nothing. This revelation was bizarrely thrilling, and she was glad that she could share her moment of sudden enlightenment with the plants and animals around her. She was alone, and she liked it. It took a minute or two for her to process this, the simple fact that she didn't have anyone to talk to and she didn't mind. She used to be self-conscious about being alone, but now she realized that she should do whatever makes her happy. If sitting by herself on benches in gardens brings her joy, she should sit on every bench in every garden on the entire planet. The girl realized that when she is alone, the world makes sense again. It becomes simple, just her and whatever happens to be nearby. She's freed from the anxiety and awkwardness of being around others, her mind finally getting enough space to bloom and wander wherever it pleases. She can do anything when she is alone, from sailing the 7 seas to winning a Nobel Prize, and go anywhere like the North Pole or outer space. Imagination sets her free. It was out there on that wooden bench in that crisp spring garden where she became aware of the fact that although she feels powerless when she is alone, floating through endless nothingness and meaninglessness, she actually holds all the power in the world.
If you want to revisit any of these moments or anything from Monday or the rest of the week, follow at Writers Week FHS on Twitter. Thank you all so much for being here.